Hi.
Hi,
Hi
Emily.
there. Welcome to another one of my Own Your Expertise interviews. I'm Emily Crookston, owner and decider of all things at the Pocket PhD. I'm the ghostwriter for Rebels, Renegades, and Mavericks, and I love helping experts with big ideas get those ideas out of their heads and into the hands of their fans. If you're watching us live today, hello. We're really glad you're out there. Feel free to pop anything into the comments. Just say hi. We love to know that people are watching us live. It's always good to know. Today, I'm sitting down with Deborah Ivanoff. Deborah is the master being coach. I hope I said that right.
You did.
And she's the owner of her own coaching company. Her LinkedIn profile describes her as the breakthrough coach for trailblazing experts, coaches, and influencers. Deborah, thanks for speaking with me today. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about who you work with and what you do?
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for having me here today. I've been looking forward to this. I love watching your interviews with people. Really, really fun to watch those. I work with experts and coaches and professionals, often in very deep dive type programs, to help them when they're getting stuck in one of those ceilings where they know what to do, but they can't make themselves do it, usually because there's some feeling stuff going on that's got a lot of things tangled up. I help them resolve those feelings, break through that ceiling, and unfold into what they're really wanting to be.
Love it. So can you tell us a little bit about your programs? Are they really customizable, or do you have sort of a standard process that you walk people through?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I do. I usually work with people now with 6-month programs. So it's a very high VIP, high touch type of program, because I found that when we're doing that deeper work, the work where we're getting below the head, below the neck, down into the heart, down into the belly, down into the spirit, soul part, that requires a space, a container where people can really have the freedom to breathe and open and take that time with themselves. So I have found that having a little bit more space and having a little bit more depth of support really helps them to get that way. And also, I do find that some healing is involved in all of that. And healing, like it or not, takes a little time and space.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think, you can't think about coaching in particular as a quick fix, right? It's not like you go talk to a coach once or twice or 3 times and then, you got it. You're set and off and flying.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. Yeah. It's funny you should mention that, Emily, because I used to work with people that way, and my work generates changes really fast.
Okay.
Right? But and just like you said, what was happening is people would experience all this relief, and they would these inspired actions, and they would go get into action. But what was really deeper under there may have been relieved for a bit, but it was still there. So they hadn't yet anchored that new being. They'd seen it, they'd run into it, they'd tried it out. But then the next time a ceiling came up, or the next time something came up that really was a challenge for them, then chances are they would resort to old behaviors. So you're absolutely right. Like, it's right about both. You can get changes really quickly in coaching. I think that's one of the ways it differs from some other things that are around. And at the same time, you definitely experience this longer, overall dramatic change that gets anchored. It becomes who you are long term.
Right. Okay. So, you're going to see results quickly in most cases.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But, to make it into a habit, really, right? To keep it part of your routine, or to have it as like you're saying, when those ceiling moments hit, you've got to trigger yourself back to remembering those tricks.
Exactly. And if you haven't practiced them,
exactly.
Now, I do also I have been expanding into this area of teaching other coaches. And more specifically, what I'm moving into now is teaching people who are experts, who are experiencing some kind of, why aren't people embracing these teachings? Why aren't they getting the results I think they can get? So they're experiencing some of that. Again, that's sort of that ceiling disturbing. I can help them with these coaching skills, intuitive coaching skills in particular, to really help them open up and help their clients open up to different results.
Very cool.
that being said, what I've got coming up here in the new year is a very small group that will be working on living courageously, living fearlessly, because that's something I hear from so many clients. I don't want to have any fear in my life. And even though between you and I, we know that's impossible. We're human beings. We're born and we die. So of course we have fear to keep us safe.
Right.
I think what they're really meaning is, I want to feel the fear and do it anyway. And that's become such a cliche saying, hasn't it? Feel the fear and do it anyway. Yeah. Well, how do you do it anyway? And I know you've got a question coming up for me, so I'm going to let you ask it, because it actually relates to this.
Perfect. Yes. My first question is, what's your die in a ditch belief?
I know. That's such an awesome question.
Thank you.
I want to tell you, I'm just so impressed by that question. That's such an amazing question. And I had to really think about it. And it does relate to what we were just talking about. It relates, for me in my work, it relates to courage. It relates to permanent, embodied transformation. And my belief is this, that any process that we undertake must be tailored for us. We are both part of the one, and we are also this individual, beautiful snowflake like no other, with many beautiful facets and many ways of taking in the input of the world and expanding and expressing ourselves out in the world. Very creative. We're very creative beings. And so no size fits all. It just does not. And the process is going to be very different from one person to another. And that's why I have opened up into this mastermind, is I find for some people, working in a group is really energizing. It's what they bounce things off of, hear from other people. That's how they begin to help tailor themselves. And other people, they need to be more shut down and more individual and have that container that's them and them alone. And that's part of that tailoring, isn't it? I did find another belief, another die in the ditch belief that came up. Yeah. That is adjacent to that, which is, there are no mistakes. I just find that is such a powerful belief to have. I've struggled with it myself. I don't know. Have you? Is that a hard belief to Yeah. Right? That is a tough belief. There are no mistakes.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially for business owners, right? I remember very distinctly, and I probably talked about this before, but I remember very distinctly a switch in my brain flipping when I was early in my business, probably a year into owning my business, where it was suddenly like, oh, right, this business is an experiment. It's not as if any one thing I try means the end of, the whole thing. Like, if it doesn't work, you try something else. So a failure, you learn to reframe failure really well. I think as a business owner, you have to, in order to be successful, in fact. Because if you're too afraid of failure, you're not going to try things. And that's how I was in the beginning. I was like, oh, wait, I need a perfect website. And if my website isn't perfect, it's a failure. Or I can't do this, and it's like, no, your website is never perfect. First of all, there's no such thing as perfect. And second of all, if you don't, and if you don't just put it out there, if you don't just try things before you're ready, you're going to put out inferior products, and it's going to take you a longer time to put them out there. I saw somebody saying something about, I think it was Bezos said something about putting things out at 70% or something along those lines. Like, he wanted his employees and workers to think about putting ideas out that are like half baked, 70% baked.
Right.
And I'm always trying to pull that out of my clients, and I have to tell myself that all the time. I've been thinking a lot about perfectionism this week. I had a post about it earlier, and I think all of these things just kind of flow together. Like you're saying, like, getting rid of fear, getting rid of or reframing failure, but also, reframing what done means, or what good enough means, or what,
And have you ever noticed how that fear of failure and that desire for perfectionism that can get us slowed down or stop? Like, we really do need to, there's a calling for good business people to be out there in the world to lift everybody up through their services, for sure. And so we don't want them to get stopped at 80% thinking it's not going to happen. We want them to put that 80% out and keep going, right?
Yes.
And, but have you ever noticed how every time we come up against that next learning curve, it feels like we're right back in that icky place again?
Yes.
And that is something that, it's not a die in a ditch, but that's why I say there are no mistakes. And I feel like it is really an adjacent to this tailoring for ourselves, is that it's so important to keep ourselves aware that every time we come up against that ceiling, we're going to feel like a complete beginner. We're going to feel like it's just not going to work for us. And we have to do exactly what you were talking about, Emily. We have to stay in that conversation with ourselves, with those around us, with our clients, with our mentors, and really support that there are no mistakes. There's only learning. There's only learning. So you were talking about that reframe. That's the reframe for me. There's only learning. Yes. And I know early days for me, when I was learning my coaching skills, and this is many, many moons ago. One of the things that I did that was just a fun trick. This is a hack for me. And this goes to show you the strength of this individualizing, is I would say to myself, whoa, this is going to look great in the book. And that's how I would challenge myself. And I would say, no matter what happens with this situation, this is going to make a great story for my book. This is going to look great in the book. And it just got me to kind of smile and see that this is what we as human beings love and live for, is that story about the heroism, the overcoming the challenges, the getting beyond it. How did you do it? How can I do it? And you notice people do it in very different ways. So that goes back to my die in a ditch theory.
Yes.
It needs to be tailored.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I have similar thought patterns that way, you know, like I'm like, if anything, I err on the side of too vulnerable, if there's such a thing, you know. I'm sometimes stopping myself from writing that. Like, if you write that, your husband is not going to be happy with you, you know, or something like that, you know. If you write that, somebody is going to be like, oh, no, you know. So I have to watch it, but or, you know, sometimes it's just like, well, there's, I think I wrote about this as like the messy guidelines or messy guardrails that we need with vulnerability, right? Because I think there's a very big difference between venting and, you know, creating something of value for others to learn from your mistakes or your challenges.
I love it. You know? See, this is what I love about you, Emily. You have this way with words. The messy guardrails for vulnerability. I love that.
Yeah.
That is really nice. Beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's such a challenge. I don't know. This is like a personal vendetta that I have going right now, where I'm like, where are they? What is it? What is vulnerability?
Vendetta? Tell me.
just what is it? You know, where are these guardrails? Like, and you know, I think with guardrails in general, I tend to be so. I don't know. So I don't know how much woo-woo we really want to go, but I'm a Gemini.
As you want to go, I'm willing to go.
I figured. Yeah, so I'm a Gemini, and I think of myself, and I think the part of the Gemini that really speaks to me is the extremist. I tend to be on one end or the other end. And lately I've been thinking a lot about how sometimes you've got to like hit those extremes and then remind yourself, like, where I really want to be is here. And I mean, that's the guardrail image, right? Like, you're bouncing off these guardrails and eventually you find your way down the track. And that's what I'm thinking about, because I'm thinking about writing my own book next year. And so this is another thing that's swirling around in my head is, you know, I want to write something genuine and authentic and vulnerable, but I don't want it to stray into the, you know, like there's a place where it goes where it's just like overshare and not helpful to people, and you know, whatever.
Well, I look forward to seeing the chapter that's called "The Messy Guardrails of Vulnerability." Fantastic chapter.
Right, that will be there. Yes,
I do. I love that so much, and I love that you're thinking about that. And in coaches training, we talk about that as the word contrast. Contrast. You know, it's all this way, it's all that way, and what we always, going back to there are no mistakes, we learn through the contrasts. When we have an upset with someone, it really heightens everything. We are in a very contrasted situation than what we usually are. Yeah. And in this area of emotional anything, vulnerability or bliss, you know, emotional anything, What I find is that, and I had personal experiences with this too, when I try to cap the negative, don't like, painful, icky emotions, I don't feel anything on the other swing. I don't get the other swing of the contrast. I don't get the highs. I don't get the depth. I don't get the vivid colors of emotions because I'm deliberately flatlining myself out. So it can be a very scary spot. When you talk about vulnerability, it can be a very scary spot when people start opening up a little bit emotionally and going back to working deeply with people. This is why you need that longer container, because otherwise it's like this festering wound that then you open and you leave the person. They could bleed out, right? You don't want to do that. You want to help them completely heal and then strengthen the muscle and then be able to work again and then really be able to express themselves. And so there's a lot of depth and nuance in that, isn't there? And I know we're talking as if this isn't for business, but this is totally for business. This is absolutely where I see businesses, especially women-owned businesses, because we've been taught in this male, fierce, hard, just suck it up and do it way. But that doesn't work for most women, I will say. Some women, yes, because again, tailored, everyone's a little different, right? But for most women, this doesn't work because we are tender and giving, and we want to support and help others. And so this real like fierce push grind doesn't work. And so I think a lot of us, I've been watching some of your other interviews, and I've seen some of the other women express similar ideas, the women business people, about this, is that we're having to reinvent business as women, as cooperative women, as women who are wanting to lift all business up, all good business, good people, lift them up. And that's going to take this emotional flexibility. And this is going to take those conversations about, where are the guardrails? You know, there's a lot of room between one lane and the other, but where are those things that help guide me through the snowstorm, right? That I know are going to kind of help me do that. You know?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I've always had a hard time with the separation between, it seems like there's a separation between life coaches and business coaches, usually a very strong dividing line. And for me, I'm like, well, I would love to have somebody who does kind of both, but you know, I mean, I feel like for me as a solopreneur, especially, they're so intertwined, and it's so hard for me to pull those things apart.
It's funny you should mention that, because I found that myself in looking. I'm very picky about anyone that I choose to coach me, and I won't coach with someone who doesn't have that spiritual, intuitive, sensitive part to them. Because you think about learning, when we talk about learning and there being no mistakes, if you have a coach that tells you you've done something wrong and they're the brutal accountability, and again, that works for some people. So I don't want to naysay it, because there are some people that absolutely need that.
Love. And I need that sometimes, for sure.
Absolutely. But I do not want to be with someone who's not going to be able to sense through the session and help me coach myself as they coach me. And it's a really cooperative, collaborative event. Now, again, that's not, some people want a coach who's going to tell them what to do. And I know coaches who love to tell people what to do. Nothing wrong with it. And that's why you see we have such a range of coaches, don't we? And we also do have these coaches who I didn't intend to be a business coach. Absolutely did not. I thought I was going to work with divorcing women way back in the day, because that's where I was at the time I learned. But, you know, life, the universe, the power that knows the way has other ideas and pathways open, and the guardrails move in and tell me, I guess I'm moving in.
Very cool. Yeah. So let me ask you this. What would you say, we've been talking a lot about, I think, how you translate your expertise. I mean, I think that's just coming out. So what would you say has helped you the most in learning to own your expertise?
Personally, I think what has helped me the most has been a voracious desire to own the tools inside myself. That's how I started. I did not start out setting out to become a coach. I started picking and choosing and grabbing things and knowing I had gaps and blind spots and wanting to flesh that out. And then people started noticing, wow, she's going through this incredibly stressful situation and she seems like she's handling it. What's her secret? And people started coming to me and asking if they could speak to me for a bit. And I realized I need to know what I'm doing. That's what I need to know what I'm doing. It didn't feel right to me to just tell people only what I did or only what I thought they should do or I didn't want to do that. So I went in, I got some education, and I was very fortunate to find an organization that helped me. The first 6 months of everything was about how to coach myself, which was brilliant. That was exactly what I was looking for. And so then I was hooked. Because everything came from it has to start with me. If I'm helping other people decide who they want to be and how that's going to be represented and expressed in the world, how can I possibly do that if I'm not really digging in with myself all the time? And I will tell you that, Emily, and I think we're sisters in this from what you've said, is that we both challenge ourselves. And when we experience that challenge, when we learn something new, when we move into new territory, all the old ghosts still come up. Right?
Yep.
That doesn't mean we're doing anything wrong. And it doesn't mean we didn't heal enough. And it didn't mean we didn't learn enough. We're in brand new territory and new things are required. Either a revamp of what we had or a remembering of what we had and now applying it to that situation. So I would say what has driven me to become an expert in this field, and it's operating right now. I'm in here in Portland. So Portland's an interesting place to be right now. And it's really spurned some deep desire to look into business as a form of social justice. How can I make changes? How can I change me so that I am a being for change, right? And that's got me a little uncomfortable. And it's got me studying things, and it's got me reading and listening and applying and offering and interconnecting with people in a way that I never had before, right? And so at each level of that, when we move into that newer territory, there are going to be for sure those moments where I feel like, I'm not doing this right. I don't know. What should I do? And here's the second thing. So you asked me about my expertise. That is the first that really has always worked for me, is this just voracious, I want to know so I have the power so I can use it in my life. That's number one. And an adjunct to that was when I became a mother, I had a very clear idea of the kind of person I wanted to be in the world and who I wanted my children to think of me as when they were 25. That was my goal. How do I want my kids to think of me at 25?
Oh, I like that question for mothers.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
That's going to use attention long term, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And the second thing is really understanding that this is the change process. This is what happens in the change process. This doesn't mean something's wrong. It means I'm on the right track. If I'm uncomfortable, if I'm emotional, if I'm suddenly headbutting with other people and I'm out of sync with them, it's because I'm becoming this whole new being. And that has set me free in a way I can't even tell you. And that's going to be one of the number one themes for sure in my upcoming mastermind, because I think this can set other people free. It will manifest itself in different ways. You know, you would express it in a different way than I would, than someone else would. But I feel like that's such a key component, is to understand that we are going to experiencing something different when we're becoming someone different.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean bad or wrong. It means we're on the right track.
Yes, that's very hard to internalize, I think. But you're absolutely right. I apply it to my yoga practice, and I'm trying to learn a new posture, for example. You know, I can tell that I'm getting stronger. I can feel it in certain postures that I do, but in these others that I really want to do, you know, I often have this thought like, what's wrong? Like, I used to be able to do this posture, you know, that kind of thought.
Oh, I hear you.
I used to be able to do this, and now I can't. But yeah, you know, but going to the postures that I now feel different in, you know, I have to remember, like, well, look, you can't expect to feel the way you used to feel in this posture and also feel better in this other posture, right? The improvement means this other thing is going to change, or that's the sign that an improvement is happening. Yeah, your back is getting tighter because it's getting stronger, these kinds of thoughts. And
I'm so glad you brought yoga up, because I read an article in the Yoga Journal many, many years ago. This was like probably 20 years ago that I read this article. I wish I could remember who it was who wrote it, but it was someone who was a teacher. Mm-hmm. And I believe she had an injury and was coming back from an injury.
Yeah.
And she wrote about how it changed her yoga practice when she realized she couldn't do things in the class the way everyone else was. She couldn't even do things the way she had taught other people. And so she was intuiting or feeling her way through her practice. And it was such a beautiful article. It really touched me at the time, not just because I do love yoga, but also because it spoke to that part that has to do about reconnecting to that inner authority. And that doesn't mean that we don't need support from outside. It doesn't mean we don't need a container. It doesn't mean we don't need other people in masterminds or mentors or mentoring other people to learn what we're learning. But it was just such a beautiful example of someone who was expressing the joy of learning how to do something she'd always done in a new way, in her own new world, and really connecting with that beauty of her inner authority. I just loved that.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, it all goes back to that. I mean, business, life, whatever, right? It's connecting to that inner authority and saying, I'm the boss here, and what works for me is going to be fine. It's huge.
And then, of course, negotiating that out with all the other people we live with. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it can happen. Sometimes it's time to let that person go too. So
absolutely.
That's okay. Yeah.
Good point.
But
absolutely.
That's right. I think it all comes back to that. Owning your expertise, or doing your yoga, or owning your business.
Totally.
All of it.
I love yoga as an analogy. Yoga people are so easy to work with because they already know what the process is. They've been working through it with their body. Now to, bring it into a different realm. It's like such a great way to transfer skill set. It's fantastic. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I wouldn't have started my business without yoga. I mean, it really prompted me. It really prompted me to, because I was miserable and I wasn't really acknowledging how miserable I was. And I started practicing yoga, and I mean, honestly, I was crying in Shavasana every day.
I hear you.
I was like, what is happening to me? And I mean, it just forces you to examine that stuff. You can't ignore it.
Totally.
Because you're in your body and you're meditating and you're, just thinking and focusing.
Well, that's where everything is stored in your body.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't understand that either. And that's where a lot of the work is going now for both therapists and coaches and healers, is going to that whole somatic experience. I'm even, just as a side note, I'm doing a value add for my clients right now and doing a nonviolent communication practice every week. And we're bringing in that somatic work to the nonviolent communication, because that's what's here and now. Our world is changing, like it or not.
Right.
Too early for me to tell, but I'm kind of excited. I feel the potential. And a lot of it is around communication and healing and all of that emotional intelligence part, getting down out of the head and into the whole being. So important.
Yeah. I mean, my yoga teacher always says, look, the body doesn't speak English. You can't just talk to your body. Your body understands movement. Your body understands, massage. Your body understands comfort, that kind of thing. That's what your body needs to relax. So super interesting, and release those emotions. Really fascinating. Awesome. Oh, Deborah, I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
Thank you so much. Why don't you tell everyone where they can learn more about you?
Okay, so everyone can see my name. It's spelled out here. And that's my website as well. Deborah Ivanoff, all one word, just squished together.com, DeborahIvanoff.com. They can see me there. If they want to talk to me, they can sign up for a little get to know you. It's very easy. It works very well. And then also you can also do thebeingcoach.com. It forwards there. And you can send me mail there as well, info@deborahivanoff.com. People can get in touch with me. So I'm very easy to get in touch with. I am on social media. I don't spend a lot of time. I'm not a phone scroller, once a day maybe. But so I would say if someone really wants to reach me, reach out with email.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
You bet. It's been a blast. Thank you, Emily. Really fun. Let's do it again.
Yes, thanks.